Hi everyone, this is the second episode in a deep dive series of Collexy. The second set of the Wizards of the Coast era is Jungle, which we will be discussing this video. Just like the last episode, we will be covering the English structure only, which is followed by all other languages except for Japanese, because Japanese has its own structure, which is not part of this video. For future reference, this video only pertains to the English structure and specifically all variations of the cards included in the English structure. We will not be discussing the Japanese structure, and we will also not be discussing the sealed product of the English structure, for which we can, if there is enough demand for it, make an extra video. The Jungle set was the second set released by Wizards of the Coast. It was released on the 16th of June 1999. The custom-made databases of Collexy, a new platform through which you can track, collect, value, price, sell, buy collectibles, mapped all the variants of the Jungle set, which allowed me to make this video. We will not be going too much into depth in how this database works, as we have discussed this already in the first episode. Just simply remember that Collexy is there as a platform to enable you to collect better and to bring your collection needs to the next level. We already discussed how the database works in the previous video. We will just quickly reiterate the basic concepts of the database and apply them now to the Jungle set. So a quick repetition of the database structure. First, we have the era, which is the period during which a factory set was released. For the Jungle set, this would be the Wizards of the Coast era. Then we have the factory set, which is the collection of cards under one denominator, which in this case would be the set name, which is Jungle. Then the third element is the master, which is the card that encompasses all variants. So there is only one master per card in the jungle set, but multiple variants per master. And so we arrive at the last one, which is variant, which is a specific variant of a card, or as we say it, of a master. So now we will apply these parameters to Flareon. Flareon was printed here in the Wizards of the Coast era, forms part of the set that we're discussing this episode, which is a jungle set. The master itself is simply the card, which is number 3 out of 64. And the variant that we are looking at here is the English Unlimited Edition variant with the Wizards of the Coast copyright of 1999. So now we'll be looking at the structure of the jungle set. Keep in mind that for every card in the jungle set, there is only one master, but there will be multiple variants. There should be at least around 14 variants per master in the jungle set due to the different parameters like language, edition, etc. As we just said, the jungle set contains 64 masters because there are 64 cards. These masters can be divided into 63 Pokemon, 1 trainer card, and 0 energy cards. The rarities, there's basically of every rarity there's 16 cards, 16 masters. So what do we mean by that? There's 16 holo rares, 16 rares, 16 uncommons, and 16 commons. Jungle was printed in a few less languages than base set because it was only printed in English, Dutch, German, French, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese. So we will now be discussing the card structure of the cards included in the jungle set. Before we do that, I just want to quickly mention that the holo rare cards and the rare cards of the jungle set have identical artwork. However, the holo rares are always printed in a holofoil with a holofoil pattern, while the rare cards are always printed without such a holofoil pattern. They are so-called non-holofoils. So now let's take a look at the card structure themselves. So here we see a Pokemon card of the jungle set. We have already discussed the different elements that are on the card extensively in the previous episode with respect to the base set. However, for completeness sake, I will briefly repeat all the different elements on such a card um, in this episode as well. So on the top left of the card, you can see the visual and the textual representation of the Pokemon from which the Pokemon in the art box evolves. Then the next part is that we can see the name Flareon, which is the name of the Pokemon in the art box, which can differ if it's printed in another language. And on the right hand side, we see the health points, which is HP, and the symbol, which is here a fire symbol because it's a fire Pokemon. Here we can see the art box of the Pokemon, which is basically where the Pokemon is in. For the holo rare cards, it's interesting to note that the English variants were printed with a Starlight holofoil, just like in the base set, but that all other languages are printed with Cosmos holofoil. On the left side, right below the art box, you can see an area basically. When there is a first edition stamp, it's a first edition variant. When there is an empty space, that means it's an unlimited edition variant. Then on the right side of the art box, or right below the art box, you can see the symbol of the set, which is basically a flower for the jungle sets. All cards in the jungle normally come with this set symbol. However, some variants were printed without a set symbol. More on that later, which we'll discuss under the special variants. In this area, basically, you can see all the attacks, the Pokemon power, the description, etc. of the Pokemon. This, of course, differs based on the language in which the specific variant would be printed. Then all the way on the bottom, the same thing as for the base set. On the left side, you can see the illustrator of the master. Next to it, you can see the Nintendo copyright years. And then on the right side, you can see the Wizards of the Coast copyright year. And finally, on the right side, you can see the number of the master and the rarity of the master. As we mentioned earlier, there is only one trainer card in the jungle set. The layout of the trainer cards is exactly the same as the Pokemon cards, with the exception of the first edition stamp on the bottom left corner of the card, which would with the Pokemon card be right on the left side below the art box. We will not be discussing energy cards because the jungle set simply did not contain any energy cards. So we have now discussed the structure of the set and the structure of the cards, and now we'll be looking at the different parameters that need to be considered to determine which variation a specific card will be. As mentioned earlier, Jungle was basically printed in 7 different languages, contrary to the base set, which was printed in 9 different languages. So this set was printed in English, Dutch, German, French, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese. So the languages that disappeared after the base set were Chinese and Korean. So the second parameter that we'll take a look at is the addition. For every language, there are at least 2 variants. Except for English, those are also the only 2 variants that each card in the jungle set has. We make a distinction between, on the one hand, the first edition, and on the other hand, the unlimited edition. So just like base sets, there are 2 kinds of holofoils for the holo rares in the jungle sets. However, the Starlight holofoil was only printed in English, which is a stars pattern, while in all the other languages, the Cosmos holofoil, which is a circles pattern, was used. As we mentioned, there are basically 16 holo rares in the base set, and all the other cards and masters therefore do not have a holofoil pattern. In the jungle set, there are basically 2 copyrights, just like in base set, however, they are way easier to distinguish. English was only printed with the Wizards of the Coast copyright year of 1999, while all the other languages were printed with a copyright year of 1999-2000. So we will now discuss the print runs. There are 3 print runs because there are 3 different variants of the cards, which we will now briefly discuss. So the first print run is the first edition variant. So in English, the first edition variant always came with the Wizards of the Coast copyright year of 1999, while in all the other languages there was also a first edition variant. However, these cards always came with the Wizards of the Coast copyright year 1999 to 2000. So then we have the second print run, or the so-called second print run. This is the unlimited edition print run without a symbol, which means that the set symbol, which was the flower that we discussed earlier, does not appear on some holo rare cards that were printed in English. This print run was only printed in English. There were no other languages in which these variants were printed. It is not per se a different print run, but the no symbol variants were rumored to be printed in the transition period from first edition to the unlimited edition, and due to some error, they received the same treatment as the base set, which also did not have a symbol. These are therefore called the no symbol holo variants of the cards in the jungle set. And then we have the final print run, which is the third print run, which is an unlimited edition variant. These were printed in both English and all the other languages. In English, these were printed with the Wizards of the Coast copyright year of 1999, while all the other languages were printed with the Wizards of the Coast copyright of 1999 to 2000. So we'll now make a brief conclusion about the structure, the card structure, and the different print runs of Jungle to then go into depth on the special variants that appear in the Jungle set. So, as a summary overview, we can see that the first edition with the copyright of 1999 was only printed in English, while the first edition with the copyright 1999 to 2000 were printed in all other languages. The unlimited edition without the set symbol, which are only the holo rares as mentioned earlier, were only printed in English and not printed in any other languages. And then finally, we have the unlimited edition with the Wizards of the Coast copyright of 1999, which was only printed in English and not in any other languages, while the unlimited edition variants with the copyright 1999 to 2000 were solely printed in all the other languages, which follows the structure of the first edition differentiation as well. So let's look at the decision tree that makes it easy to distinguish between the different variants. So the first question is basically which language is the variant printed in? Is it in English or in the other language? If it's in another language than English, you simply have to differentiate between the first edition and the unlimited edition. If it was printed, or if the language was actually English, if it's first edition, it's also very easy to determine the first edition variant in English. If it was the unlimited edition, then we have to distinguish between, on the one hand, a card or a master that has the holo rare rarity, and on the other hand, all the other rarities. If it's all the other rarities, it's basically only one option that the variant can be. However, if it's a holo rare, you have to make a distinction between, on the one hand, the no symbol variants, and on the other hand, the variants that do have a jungle symbol. We have now discussed the English structure of the jungle set. We have discussed what masters are and variations are, and we have seen that there are multiple variations of a single card in the jungle set. We have also determined that there are at least 14 variations. However, there are some special variations which deserve some extra attention, which we'll be discussing right now. The first variation that we will discuss, and which are for me personally the most interesting variations, are the no symbol variations. The no symbol variations were printed just like the base set. It is rumored that these were printed upon the change from first edition to unlimited edition, and for some reason, the jungle symbol on the bottom right corner of the art box disappeared. This only applies for the 16 holo rares, and these were also only printed in English, so they simply do not exist in any other language than English. So while the no symbol variants were pretty much their own print run, which was only in English and only for the 16 holo rares of the jungle set, we also have some more variants that we will now discuss that are more particular for one specific master or card in jungle set. So the first, also very interesting variant is an English Unlimited Edition variant of the Holo Rare Clefable, which is the first card of the jungle set. This was also the first official pre-release card, which was distributed at jungle pre-sale tournaments held at the Pokémon Leagues in July 1999. On the bottom right side of the art book, you can see the text pre-release. You might remember that we have discussed the Raichu with the pre-release stamp in the base set episode. However, that Raichu was erroneously printed with the pre-release stamp and is therefore considered to be an unofficial release. Thus, this makes Clefable the first, with the pre-release stamp, the first card that has and that basically carries the pre-release stamp. So the next variant we will discuss is a variant of Meowth. We call this the fruit roll-up variant, and it's basically another variant of the English Unlimited Edition. In December 1999, fruit roll-ups, a form of candy, included a Pokemon card in their packaging. When you opened the package, there would be one of five cards that could be found in roll-up: Pikachu, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charmander, or Meowth. The first four did not have specific variants, and these could not be distinguished from the other jungle variants. However, Meowth did, as it has a golden border, which clearly differs from the standard yellow border. The pull rate of this Meowth was rumored to be 3 to 4 of this variant per case of boxes of fruit roll-ups. So the next variant is Pikachu with the W stamp duelist variant. It's a variant of the English first edition. This variant could be found in the Duelist magazine of September 1999. This is the first of 7 cards that were issued with a stylized W, which represents the first letter of the original logo of Wizards of the Coast, which were the printers and distributors of Pokemon back in the day. There are only 7 total variants of 7 different masters that were printed with the so-called W stamp. So the next special variant is Butterfree. There is a special variant which is called the D edition. It is also based on the English first edition. But there is an extra variant because due to some printing error, the one in first for first edition appears as a D due to an ink malfunctioning. This variant is commonly referred to as the D error. Then we have a special one. This is a jungle card that has, instead of first edition and unlimited edition, a Pikachu tail. This Pikachu tail illustrates that this card comes from the Pikachu World Collection, which contained 9 Pikachu cards in 9 different languages. This collection could only be bought at Pokemon Park 2000 at Sydney University in Australia. These variants can be differentiated only through the tail, but also it's very interesting to note that this is the only Chinese jungle card that exists in the jungle set. Last but not least, we have the Venonat error, which is also referred to as the line error. This is a variant that follows the English first edition variant. And you can see on the left side, where the yellow border and the background of the card on this variant of Venonat, there is a clear line which is referred to as the line error. This only appears on the first edition variants in English. So we've now discussed all different cards that have additional variants. However, there are also some cards that were subject to art errors or to printing errors, but whose errors were never rectified, and therefore there are no new variants, as the only existing variants were always accompanied with these errors. So we will briefly discuss them for completeness sake, but please bear in mind these did not create additional variants. So the first one that we will discuss is Electrode. As we mentioned, every holo rare slash rare card has identical artwork and it was reprinted. Even though there were different masters, the artwork was identical. However, the Electrode was printed in base set and in jungle set and received new artwork. The new artwork was used on the first edition and unlimited variants of the holo rare master. However, the old artwork from the base set was used on the first edition variant of the Rare Master of Electrode, while the Unlimited Edition variant of the Rare Master of Electrode did use the new jungle artwork. This was never rectified in the first edition variant, but it was eventually rectified in the Unlimited Edition variant of the non-holofoil rares. Then we also have for Rapidash, we have a stage error. So as we know, in the top left-hand corner of the card, you can see the visual and textual representation of the Pokemon from which the Pokemon in the art box evolves. In the evolution box, reference is made to Ponyta as a first stage Pokemon, while it should be a basic Pokemon. Just like with Electrode, this error was never rectified and never corrected, and thus it did not create an extra variant. The same applies for Seeking, where reference is made to Goldeen as a Stage 1 Pokemon, while it should have been a basic Pokemon. This error was also never corrected, and thus did not lead to an extra variant. Last but not least, we have a special case of the Jungle Pikachu, where the question is whether or not the variant that we will now discuss is a part of Jungle or a part of the Wizards Black Star promo set. So here we have Pikachu. So this was basically a Wizards Black Star promo card. However, some cards of this variant were distributed in prototype Jungle Booster Packs. These cards could also be found in some regular Jungle Booster Packs. For a long time, this was considered to be an error card, but it is now considered an intended variant of the promo card, despite being included in the Jungle product. This is the only first edition promo variant, but it does not really form part of the jungle set because it's not part of the 64 cards. Therefore, this is more a variant of the Wizards Black Star promo card, which is the first promo card, than a variant of an existing master in the jungle set. Nevertheless, very interesting card, and it's also very interesting because it's the only first edition promo card that exists. This video was made possible by the custom-made databases of Collexy, which basically maps all the different variants of the cards of the jungle set. Collexy is a one-stop shop platform for collecting, buying, selling, managing, pricing, valuing your collectibles. Collexy is powered by custom-made databases that map all the different variants of a card, differentiating between all variants as every variant is different. Collexy also reduces the tasks we all like to avoid, like long listing processes and retaking pictures, to a bare minimum. Through Collexy, I learned that there are 149 English variants of the jungle set. However, if I were to solely collect the unlimited English variants of the jungle set, the total amount of the variants would be reduced to 83 variants. We invite you to play around with all our features and to make your own personal and customized collections. I hope you found this video educational and entertaining to watch. Please like, subscribe, and share. Please also follow our Instagram for more solid Pokemon content. Signing out, Collexy, where collectibles connect.